Mike Bohn here with former UFC middleweight champion, UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping, who has his Bisping story documentary coming out March 22nd, on demand, streaming platforms, all that stuff. Mike, what's the feeling like that the world's going to finally see this? I know it's kind of been out there with bits and pieces for the last little while, but to kind of have it fully released and have, your story this in depth shared with all the people, is this exciting? Is this something you're kind of nervous about? Because there's a lot of personal things in there. What would you kind of say the emotions are?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Mike. It's a bit of both. I'm excited because we've worked so hard on this since 2018, and I am very happy with the final product. But I'm a little nervous as well. I bare my soul a little bit. I talk about my emotions. I talk about my struggle and whatnot, and some of my personal circumstances when I was younger. So a little bit of everything, but I'm proud of it. I'm very happy with it. All the people that lended their time to speak on it, I thank them all because they all added such value to the film. We've got Vin Diesel, Mickey Rourke, Dana White, Scott Adkins, Michael Joe White, George St. Pierre. The list goes on. So, yeah, I'm very, very happy with it.
Yeah, it's really impressive to see all the people that contributed it. And I think that speaks to, the relationships you've made throughout your career and the people that want to kind of speak on your story and all that stuff and have seen it firsthand. When, I guess, did this first come into mind, like the idea of wanting to do this? Because there's some really old footage in there that I imagine was like personally taken. And maybe at the time you would have never thought this would have seen the light of day. So was there ever like a nugget in the back of your mind early in your career? Like, hey, if I make it as far as I want, this could be something it could be useful down the line?
Never, and I wish I did. But no, it was 2018. A friend of mine called Yaz Talat and Gabriel Naporo, they have a company called Electric Panda in Canada, and they approached me about the possibility of a documentary. So we think you've got an amazing story. So we have a team here it's called Scorgy Productions. They're award-winning documentary makers, and we actually have a budget to make this. And I thought about it, and I was proud of my story, of what I went through. And as you probably know, it did get released in Canada already. And the feedback that I've had, and people sending me just the kindest messages saying, they've been really inspired by my story and my refusal to quit. And, saying, I went through this and see what you achieved. It's really inspired me and things. So that's all beautiful to hear, so people have enjoyed it. It's been well received, but yeah, that was kind of it. 2018, they presented me with this opportunity. And I was like, sure. All right, let's do it. But if we're doing it, we're going to do it properly.
Yeah, and you guys obviously did. And I felt like there's some really, kind of intimate things on there. We can go over a little bit. But one thing that I did want to ask about, because I had never seen that footage before, the interview, it was like a radio interview you did where they were calling you a barbarian.
Oh, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
Responded to that. Like, do you recall that? And I mean, that was like the days, right? I mean, I've been covering the sport for almost a decade now, being a fan for years longer. I remember, those days, where you guys would be depicted as something you're clearly not. But
no.
To be in that scenario and like in that radio station, those were the days. Like, what do you remember from that interview, and how like offended were you?
I remember it perfectly. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was leading up to UFC 70. I was in Manchester. I went into BBC Manchester, and this lady, she's sitting there, and she was an older lady, but she had like leather on and lots of makeup and lipstick and whatever. And she was talking about the sport, and she said, "Well, you were all barbarians and things like that." She was discrediting the sport, the type of thing. So I said, "I'm not a barbarian." And she goes, "Well, you look like a barbarian." I said, "Right, well, I'll keep my thoughts of what you look like to myself, but mutton dressed as lamb does spring to mind." That part never made it. But, and as you say, a lot of people do like to discredit the sport back in the early days. Fortunately, that's all behind us. But yeah, that when they popped up with that footage, I was like, "Oh, where'd you find that?" Because I remember that, but I'd never actually seen the footage. So I don't know how the production team managed to find it, but good for them.
Yeah, that was a good nugget that they put in there. And then like, it's funny because you look at the paradox between someone saying something like that to you, and then you have George St. Pierre, who's literally like, the ideal model depiction, poster boy for the sport. And he's saying, I wanted to be like Michael Bisping, like he admired you in some way. When you saw that quote, what does that mean to you coming from someone like George St. Pierre, who I know you have a fighting history with, but I know you also respect him immensely?
Oh, yes, respect absolutely immensely. I know I acted like kind of a jerk building up to that fight, but that's kind of like, that was my character, and that's what I did. And I was trying to sell the fight. I tried to mess with George a little bit, and we're going to fight. So I would always You just poke the bear and have a little bit of fun, but it was never anything too bad. It was just in jest. But to hear George, as successful as he has been, and he truly is one of the greatest of all time, to hear him being so open and so complimentary towards me was, yeah, I mean, there's no words really. Do you know what I mean? Because I look up to George myself. I admire the career that he has had. He's the consummate professional. Everyone, I always said, any young martial artist, you need to model yourself on George St. Pierre. Do you know what I mean? Because that is the guy right there. So for him to say those words, yeah, I always wanted to be like Michael. That's big.
Yeah, that was a super nice thing of him to say. Was there anyone whose participation or something that they said like surprised you at all? I mean, you even got Luke Rockhold in there, who was sincere in his reflections and stuff too. Like, what was the one that kind of maybe hit you in the feels the most, who went in there and said some things?
Well, anytime my wife and children speak on there, that always gets me the most. It does every time. I don't know why, but yeah, it's start getting a little emotional and being a little bit of a wimp. But I'm like, hold on, I'm supposed to be a tough guy. Get it together. So yeah, anytime that happens, that happens. But yeah, Rockhold was kind enough to come on and talk. I really liked the part where Michael Jai White is talking. About kind of the challenges of being an alpha male in a modern society and stuff. So that was very interesting. Joe Rogan goes into some great quotes about how hard it is to deal with a loss, because we spend a lot of time dissecting some of the losses and how hard it is psychologically to come back from that. And certainly in this day and age where social media, fans can reach out and send you bloody messages directly. 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. Now, fighters go out there, they lose a fight, and their inbox is full of little pricks, mocking their loss and things like that, and that is a harsh reality of it. So you take the good with the bad of social media, so it's tough, and I think we delve into that pretty good, and we talk about that. And yeah, as I say, I'm very happy with the final product.
Yeah, what do you want the viewers' main takeaway to be? Because to me, it's the two underlying storylines are, of course, you persevering through the eye injury and becoming world champion and being kind of at the low points and being able to overcome that, and then your motivation for fighting as a whole, which is to take care of your family. Those are kind of the two prominent narratives. Is that what you wanted people, or would want people to take the most out of this?
I never went into it with a message that I wanted to send. Do you know what I mean? It was like they kind of came to me and said, we want to document your life story because we think it's incredible. And I said, okay, all right, let's do it. But I guess looking back now and having seen it and some of the feedback that I've got from people, I guess it's a story of perseverance, never giving up, even though I went through so many hardships and my body was failing me, I still wanted to achieve some things and ultimately take care of my family. And I think realistically, it's a story that, we all have hardships in life. We're all held back in some ways, but if you're willing to get off your ass and do something about it, then you can turn things around. I was at rock bottom and managed to turn that around. I wasn't skilled necessarily. I wasn't an athlete, but I had a gift for fighting. I realized that gift and I came up with a plan to get me to where I wanted to be. And I always say, I think most people have a gift. Most people are good at something, so if you do some soul searching and you figure out what that is, and then you think, where can this skill take me? What is the absolute Mount Everest of that ability? And then you figure out a plan how you're going to get there, then you're going to get off your ass and do the hard work, but I think a lot of people will take inspiration from that side of it, because I wasn't a guy that was necessarily destined to do anything great in life. I'm not saying I did great things, but I did a couple of decent things.
No, you did a lot of awesome stuff. And I mean, as someone who's obviously covered you pretty thoroughly for, a very long time now, I've heard you say bits and pieces of the stories that were on there, whether it's on your podcast or interviews or press conferences. So it's obviously a very nice collection of how it's brought together. But what was the most difficult things for you to kind of talk about? Was it the seriousness of the eye injury? Because I know there were some things even on there that you weren't willing to reveal when it came to that.
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely challenging, because I lied to a lot of people, and I don't want to make a fool out of anyone. You know what I mean? I don't want to undermine their abilities and stuff like that. And certainly don't want to get anyone in trouble. So there was that side of things. Talking about my childhood was tough as well. You know, I love my parents dearly, but you know, it was a mental household that we grew up in. You know what I mean? We'll just leave it at that. Do you know what I mean? I love them dearly. They did great by me, and they made me the man I am today. But like, you know, talking the directive, they were pushing and pushing and pushing. So, you know, they had me in tears a couple of times, you know, but I'm like, even then I went, right, we got to cut some of this out, you know, but yeah, I think they were the toughest.
Yeah, it's so interesting your story from the fighting side. Like a lot of people use it as an example now, and maybe almost like falsely, you know, Michael Bisping, like ability, they say he's not going to become champion. He's not going to be able to rebound from this loss or this loss. And, you know, we see people like Dustin Poirier, like Charles Oliveira, Robbie Lawler, who have kind of been through a similar career arc. Do you take, I mean, when people look at you as kind of the poster boy for that, though, what does that mean to you? Like, is that something that you appreciate? Is that, how do you kind
of course. Of course, it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Yeah, right? It's like, he was never that good and he did it. Wow. If he can do it, anyone can do it. No, I'm kidding. No, they mean it with the greatest of respect. And I remember Dustin Poirier said that to my face. I remember after he lost to Khabib, we were on a UFC fighter transport bus, and it was just him and his wife, and I was getting off and he was there, and I just thought I took that moment to say, you know, unlucky in that fight, Dustin, and, you know, but, you know, keep your chin up, so to speak. And he told me right then and there, he said, I'm not done. He said, in fact, Michael, he said, I take so much inspiration from your career, you know, and things like that. So it meant a lot to me, and it does mean a lot to me when people say that, you know. If you believe in yourself and you're willing to do the hard work, and you're fortunate enough to have some support network around you, and if you don't give up, you know, you might just get there. Yeah, it might take a little bit of good luck along the way, whatever it is, you know, but, you know, once you give up on yourself, then that's it. It's over. So like I say in my book, quitters never win. You know what I mean? If you believe in yourself, well, then you've got to keep going. You've got to keep trying. Once you quit on yourself, even though that's for fighters, the confidence is the biggest weapon they can ever have. But it can be a double-edged sword. It can be a gift and a curse. You know what I mean? You're too confident, you're going to be arrogant and not push yourself in training. If you're not confident enough, you're not going to believe in yourself, and you're not going to try and do it. But as I say, once you give up on yourself, it's over. In anything, whether it's fighting, journalism, whatever it is in life, you give up on yourself, you're done. So you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to never, ever give up. And if you want to achieve something, then you've got to continue to strive for it, and you've got to continue to go for it. You've got to continue to get out of bed and fucking work hard, you know? And that's the hard part. Not everyone's willing to do that. Not everyone's willing to take the lumps and the knocks and the setbacks and the adversity and the fucking losses and the knockouts and all the rest of it and the injuries, and still say, no, I can still do this. You know, yeah, my eye happened, but I was like, I can still do this. I know I can still do this. I have to do this because I've got no other options right now. So yeah, I lied and cheated and bloody bullshitted anyone and everyone. And I went through a phase of wearing sunglasses indoors. And that wasn't because I thought I was Conor McGregor. It's because my eye was an absolute goddamn mess, and I didn't want people asking questions, you know. It was very stressful, but it all paid off in the end.
Do you feel like your journey maybe wouldn't have been what it was in a different time, like in UFC history and all that? Because you look at, you know, yourself, obviously, it was a different era, especially in like the mid 2000s, early 2010s. Where you were a face of the sport, the Ultimate Fighter. Winning that show meant so much more than it did. You were attached to the UK market. I know that you were getting paid what a lot of fighters, even now, like could only dream of for a very long time there. They took care of you for what you contributed and stuff. So do you feel like, you know, timing in that sense was help benefited you in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it did. You know, I mean, I went on the Ultimate Fighter, I think it was 2005. The sport wasn't known back then. And then certainly in the UK, I won the Ultimate Fighter, and the UFC kind of got behind me there because, of course, they want to penetrate different markets, you know. So I was kind of spearheaded, you know, as that guy to help them do that back then, which, of course, helped my standing in the UFC, you know. Of course it did, you know, but that doesn't matter. You still got to go in there and win. If you're not winning the fights, someone else will come along. you know, and I did win the fights. And a lot of people say, oh, he's Dana's little pet job, Dana's little poster boy. No, I still had to fucking fight. And I fought a who's who of mixed martial arts talent over the course of my career. And I'm proud of the names that are on there. And I'm proud of the wins and the losses. And I'm proud of the journey that I went on, you know. And, you know, I came around at a time when the UFC was starting to explode, you know. But as I say, if you're not good at fighting and you can't win fights, that's going to run out pretty quickly. That is the first and foremost ingredient, the ability to win a fight, to fight entertainingly. And then, of course, have a little charisma on the microphone as well. It all helps.
And you took opportunities. I mean, I think still to this day, you're the fighter who's headlined the most UFC cards in the most countries. Yeah. You know, never said no to these opportunities. Obviously, your championship thing came around. I mean, I'll tell the story till the day I die. I remember you being in Toronto doing the filming and us meeting up at the hotel.
Yep.
And you're, you know, massively hungover that one day. And we
did
that interview. And I was like, hey, Weidman or Rockhold could get injured. And you're like, nah, they're not going to get hurt.
I remember.
And you get the call like 2 days later. So your willingness to say yes and jump up to opportunities, I think, was something obviously that really helped you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And then also, I mean, you touched on something there, you know, the most main events in different countries. You know, a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to fly to another country. I get it. Driving down the street and competing there is a lot more convenient than flying to Australia or New Zealand. But that is another thing that helped me. You know, I went out and I main evented in all these different countries all over the world. That is not only helping the UFC, but it's also helping yourself. You know, it's also, you know, building your own brand worldwide as to letting people know who you are and what you do. And for me, being a young kid from the northwest of England with no opportunity, you're going to pay me handsomely, by the way, to train and then fly off to Sydney, Australia and fight in an arena full of 20,000 people. That just excites me. And I would love that. I would love going to different countries, get to see the world. You know, I've fought all over the world. And I absolutely loved every second of it. Yeah, the flight's a pain in the ass or whatever, and a bit of jet lag. But come on, what would you rather do? Go to the same workplace every day or go somewhere different? Go and experience new cultures, new people, new languages, new food, you know? Come on, that's what life's all about, you know, making new experiences. And I had incredible experiences, some good, some bad, you know, but I had an incredible career and I'm so lucky that I lived through it.
And two last things I want to ask you about, because I know we're short on time here. The face-offs throughout your career, that was something that you always, you know, made a point to make exciting and everything. What was the most difficult one to go up there and at that way and like say something to them that would either agitate them or get under their skin? Was it like a Brian Stan who you don't really have much to work with, or was there something like, what was the one where you had to manifest something that maybe wasn't there?
Oh, that's a tough question, Mike Bohn. I mean, listen, with the face-offs, that's your last opportunity to get in your face and say, listen, tomorrow night, right, this is all well and good here at the weigh-ins or whatever, but tomorrow night you're locked in the cage with me and I'm going to smash your face in. Right. So whilst regrettably, I would often make a fool out of myself and not someone that you want to invite over maybe for Sunday lunch because you're like, this guy looks like a psycho. It's psychological warfare at that moment in time. That is your last opportunity. So you got to make the most of it. Now, sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the GSP will just laugh at you. You know what I mean? And George might be one of the big ones. In fact, he probably was, because I like George a lot and I always did. And in fact, my knee problem started when I was training with George in 2005 or 6, right before the Ultimate Fighter finale. I tore my PCL training with George 5 days before the Ultimate Fighter 3 finale. So I've known George a lot, you know, and we had a great time. And when it came to fight, you know, he's a huge pay-per-view star, but I want to add to that, you know. So I was like, all right, if I've got to be the bad guy, I've got to be the heel, I'll do that, you know. And I think he told the story on Rogan's podcast. We were at the ESPN studios in Bristol, Connecticut, and I was doing my thing, being a loudmouth and talking shit, you know. But when we were in the bathroom, I saw him. Hey, George, how you doing? And we were both having a piss, stood next to each other. And he said, you drive a Range Rover, right, Mike? I'm like, yeah, I used to. I said, because they fall apart. So we were bitching about cars and whatnot. You know, I go, right, George, I'm going out there. I said, sorry, got to put my game face on. You know what I mean? Got to be a dickhead again. You know, so yeah, George, probably George.
Yeah, awesome. And last thing, I know we talked almost a year ago to the day. I was at your house. We did that sit down interview and everything. And you put out, I want to one day call a UFC card with Joe Rogan. And it happened this past Saturday. I know the circumstances weren't ideal. We all wish the best to Daniel Cormier and his family and everything. But to have that moment come to fruition and be in that booth calling a fight card of that magnitude with Joe Rogan, John Anik, what does it feel like to kind of be able to cross off that box on the bucket list for yourself?
Yeah, well, I feel it's just a next step in the evolution of my commentary career, because it was dubious circumstances, but there's other people they can ask. Do you know what I mean? And I got the call. So I'm very, very grateful to Dana, to Zach Candito, Craig Bassari, and all the production team for giving me those opportunities, and it's something that I'm very blessed and privileged to receive. Obviously you got to earn that spot, and I guess I've done that. But just to get the call was incredible. And yeah, Joe Rogan's the godfather of MMA commentary, let's be honest, so to work alongside him was fantastic. And just to be able to call those fights, I love working the fight nights. It's incredible. But to be calling title fights, even though there wasn't a title on at the weekend, there was the time I did it before with Izzy and Whittaker, to be calling title fights, it doesn't get any bigger than that. So, yeah, still very grateful for the opportunity. And still to this day, I have to pinch myself sometimes. I'm a former knucklehead. I left school at 16. And now I had a great, illustrious fight career. And now things couldn't be going any better outside of fighting. Now I'm retired. I'm still very much involved with the fight game through my commentary, through my podcast, my YouTube, and a bunch of other endeavors I'm involved with. And it's also opened up so many other doors, like, acting and stuff like that. So I never thought I'd be a broadcaster. Generally I get paid now for speaking. A lot of the time I don't leave this room. I sit here. I'm always doing Zooms and podcasts and this and that, talking about fighting. It's incredible. And if the UFC wasn't such a successful promotion, I wouldn't have these opportunities. I work for BT Sport. I work for ESPN. I work for UFC, as I say, YouTube, podcasts, everything. And it's all from here. I mean, just talking into this microphone. And it's quite a nice living I earn as well. So I am ever grateful for the opportunities and just blown away that I have them in the first place.
Yeah, well, you've earned the man, and I'm super happy to see where you're at. I feel like, this next chapter could be another whole documentary down the line. So we'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
I know you got a lot of these today, so I'll let you go. I'm heading to London on Monday, so I will see you there next week. And hopefully, there's a lot of MMA newsy stuff that I want to talk with you about. So hopefully we can do another chat next week when we're on the ground.
Yeah, of course. I fly Friday, so safe journey. I'll see you there, Mike.